I want them to see the role and not see me. He said that is the job of an actor.
A black man being a king does not fit the narrative of what they want the world to see.
Wakanda forever!
Where it's not about me, it's about the role. And people remember the role.
I don't think they liked the response that came back from a black man being a king.
As the scripture says, I planted the seed and Apollos watered it. But God kept growing. God kept it growing.
Since the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman on August 28, 2020, and Marvel Studios' subsequent announcement to never recast the T'Challa role, there has been a consistent, if not growing, movement and realization by the fans that we need T'Challa back. Yet we've witnessed Marvel Studios counter everything Boseman stood for as an actor with the release of the second Black Panther movie. We've also seen them abuse the character in the comics and retcon T'Challa out of the iconic X-Men animated series. Today, I want to talk about the real reasons that Marvel Studios and Disney have gotten rid of the character of T'Challa and are destroying Chadwick Boseman's legacy. On December 20th, 2020, less than 3 months after Chadwick Boseman's passing, Marvel Studios executive producer Kevin Feige made his fateful announcement. At the time, comic book fans pointed out that T'Challa was still alive and well in the comic books. And soon after, others correctly pointed out that he was in the animated shows and Disney Lego specials. But what many of us did not understand was Marvel Studios and Disney's declaration of their intention to erase all traces of the character called T'Challa as created by Chadwick Boseman. And this is the key factor to remember. They wanted to erase, retcon, and eliminate all versions of T'Challa in an effort to erase Chadwick Boseman's work, not honor it. Marvel doesn't care if we keep Wakanda. We still have Black Panther, whether he's T'Challa's father, King T'Chaka, or Shuri, his sister. They even introduced us to T'Challa's illegitimate son, Toussaint, in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So having a Black Panther, whether male or female, isn't the issue. Marvel and Disney were determined to get rid of T'Challa, and to understand why, we have to go back and understand Boseman's mission and what he achieved before his death. The late comedian and activist Dick Gregory encouraged people to always pray for the truth to come out, and it eventually would come out, no matter the situation or event. When it comes to the infamous 5-minute meeting to decide never to recast T'Challa, that's exactly what happened. Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios claimed their decision not to recast T'Challa was based on director Ryan Coogler and producer Nate Moore's decision not to recast after their infamous 5-minute meeting. That statement never made any sense to critical thinkers. How could two black men make such a far-reaching decision in just 5 minutes? Look, if me and my co-workers already knew we were going to go to lunch together, it still took us longer than 5 minutes to decide which restaurant to go to, let alone who's going to drive. No honest person believed Coogler and Moore made that decision not to recast T'Challa in just 5 minutes. Second, Ryan Coogler and Nate Moore only had the authority to decide they weren't going to recast the character for the next Black Panther movie. They had no say over the comic books and the animation studios. All three of these are different entities. In fact, Nate Moore admitted this in a November 2021 Y Entertainment interview. But even before the article, the truth had already seeped out when Moore let it slip in a Zoom meeting that recasting T'Challa was never on the table for discussion during this 5-minute meeting. He spoke of that in the same Y Entertainment interview. Once again, recasting was never on the table in that meeting. At best, Moore probably called Coogler to confirm what to say to Feige, namely, they weren't going to recast, which still means the decision happened before the meeting and was just everyone getting on the same page. Otherwise, why limit the meeting to 5 minutes? I could see it if it was the first 5 minutes of the meeting, with everyone agreeing no recasting, then going on into the larger discussion of what to actually do. But just 5 minutes, when you admit that Boseman left a big hole and the challenge for Black Panther Wakanda Forever is telling a story without T'Challa, no one wanted to hang on the line and discuss that big challenge? When we look at the decision and subsequent Marvel actions, we know that Kevin Feige didn't even have the authority to make the decision over T'Challa in the comics and the animation side. That decision had to come from somebody above him, and the decision was to get rid of the character of T'Challa across all iterations. And that means the decision was always from the top, and it was never Ryan Coogler and Nate Moore. I truly feel there was a Marvel Studio executive producer there, and that's the reason it was only 5 minutes, because that's what they allotted to Nate Moore and Ryan Coogler to get them on board with destroying Chadwick Boseman's legacy. Now you have Marvel Studios going back and retconning the character T'Challa out of the original animated X-Men series from 1992. This was a mistake by the studio and only served to push more casual fans into the recast T'Challa camp. That brings us back to the central question. Why are they getting rid of T'Challa across all media? It's simple. Chadwick Boseman planted a seed when he portrayed the first ever live-action T'Challa as Black Panther. It was a hugely successful start. It was groundbreaking, and it affected people around the world regardless of color and culture. And yes, it was the biggest earning standalone Marvel film to that day. Still, in my opinion, despite Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'll get to that shortly. But the mega success of Black Panther on the screen scared the hell out of Disney and Marvel Studios. It was potentially bigger than the corporation could handle and control, and it had to be destroyed. Some of you might shout, that doesn't make any sense. They threw away all that money. Yes, but they don't care about that. People who make these decisions, they get paid no matter what. If the entire MCU tanks and we never get another TV show or movie for the next 10 years, they'll be fine. We saw this during the writer's strike. They don't care. Their stock options are fine. If Disney itself goes under, they still have golden parachutes. Throughout the history of the U.S. and beyond, governments and corporations are all about power and controlling people. With modern technology and AI, they seek to control our very thoughts. And controlling Black Americans, our finances, our images, and media has always been a central priority of corporations and the government. What Chadwick Boseman did was to plant a seed, his words, from his Howard commencement address. Or if you like, he ignited a spark.
As the scripture says, I planted the seed and Apollos watered it. But God kept growing. God kept it growing.
Chadwick Boseman felt it was his calling from God to do this, so the actor who came behind him to play T'Challa would reap the increase. That's why he wanted us to see the character and not him. And look at what his seed that God used him to plant was able to accomplish. That movie made $1.3 billion, making it the highest grossing standalone Marvel film. That was his first outing as Black Panther in a standalone movie. And before you mention Captain Marvel or Spider-Man, Captain Marvel didn't earn as much as Black Panther, and you had the whole scandal of the fake ticket sales. I personally witnessed this happen when I order my tickets and I see all of these seats that were supposedly sold, but when the movie starts, they remain empty. I saw that myself. And by the way, I also saw that happen for Spider-Man Far From Home. And speaking of Spider-Man, it technically was a standalone Marvel movie and it earned $1.9 billion. But No Way Home was Tom Holland's third solo outing. In order for that movie to outperform the first Black Panther, they needed 2 additional Spider-Men, a rogues gallery of cinematic villains from the last 20 years, and Doctor Strange. That's why I really don't feel this was a quote-unquote standalone Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. No one else did either, because it's common to call it an endgame type of installment. Anyway, that was Tom's third movie. Black Panther outdid them all without fake ticket sales or multiversal variants of Black Panther. And this was just the seed that Chadwick planted. If the seed was able to make $1.3 billion, how much more would the next actor portraying T'Challa make at the box office? Marvel and Disney did not want to know. They couldn't risk it because they wouldn't be able to control the growing effect this character would have on the world. And so, in my opinion, Marvel Studios set out to destroy that legacy, that seed that was planted, which is why everything they have done and everything they are doing is designed to stop that train before it could leave the station and pick up speed. That is what this is all about. That's why, on the surface, their decisions appear dumb to so many people. What we miss is they are operating according to another script. What we see and what they play up by sending clueless shills out onto the social networks to stir up trouble is that it is designed to keep us distracted with the surface level mess. All the while, the real work, the real rituals to destroy Chadwick's legacy are being performed right in front of our eyes. The first attack on Chadwick's legacy began with Avengers Infinity War. After Thanos does the snap, T'Challa is the first Wakandan to disappear. And note, he's not wearing the Black Panther mask when this happens. The mask is off. He's T'Challa, king of Wakanda, when he disappears. But the scene that got to me, even when I first saw it in the movie theater, was the shot of the Wakandan fighters being snapped away. Only the male Wakandans being turned to dust, and not the females. And when we see the lineup for Wakanda Forever, it was clear what the plan had been all the way back in Avengers Infinity War. The next step in the ritual or plan to destroy Chadwick's legacy was declaring their plan. From the moment that Kevin Feige declared that Boseman's portrayal of this fictional character transcended all other iterations, that was the beginning of the spell that they had prepared. This was the declaration. Look at it this way. If you're a traditional Christian, then you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. His sacrifice on the cross transcended all other former sacrifices and replaced them all. From that moment forward, his blood covered everything. You had no need of the former animal sacrifices or anything else. Those were done away with. By saying that Chadwick Boseman's portrayal of T'Challa transcended all other iterations, you put it all on his back in the fictional live-action version of the character he helped to create. As such, once you eliminate that fictional character, you also effectively eliminated all the other iterations. After all, they were of no use anymore. They've been transcended. The problem was, many of us were fooled when T'Challa still appeared in a few projects. But with X-Men 97, Marvel finally exposed their hand and the full agenda to everybody else. But let's get to Wakanda Forever and the actual ritual. Everything involved in the second Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever, was done precisely to counter and to dissipate the energetic fictional character or the real mantle that Chadwick Boseman created when he portrayed T'Challa in Black Panther. Marvel had to have a funeral for the fictional character and tie that to the real live actor who had already passed away from cancer. That is why they had T'Challa die from a very similar yet unnamed disease. Many people who opposed having this funeral in the second movie stated that it was straight up morbid, and Marvel made people pay to participate. But the larger thing we are ignoring is, morbid or not, it was designed to kill the fictional character that Chadwick Boseman created through his creativity, his vibration, his focus, his calling on the ancestors, all of which went into making this energetic fictional character, this mantle that could be placed on the shoulders of another black male actor. This had to be dissipated. And we know in the universe, energy is never destroyed, it just changes forms. They could destroy the legacy, but they would do it by transforming that energy into something that could not rest on the shoulders of the next actor who would come along to play T'Challa, which is why the first thing they did was say that they would never recast T'Challa. But anyway, back to Wakanda Forever. So not only did they have a funeral for the fictional character, but they straight up lied to people who begged them not to use Boseman's picture or image in the movie. Marvel, of course, had every intention of doing that and more because that was their motive in doing this ritual, this spell. Having people pay for the movie was simply having them give their energy to the spell. Money, all kinds of money, is a representation of energy. Beyond that, black people and their emotions served as the battery and the energy source for this ritual. More so because many of us, unfortunately, wholeheartedly agreed and wanted to participate. And so, yes, the movie funeral was morbid as hell, but it was there and it was designed to be that way because it had a specific purpose. And the last indignity and part of the spell or the ritual was to have Shuri burn T'Challa's burial cloth at the end of the movie while crying for him. This was complete with an ending sad sack song. We all know that when you burn something in this way, you are transmuting the energy. By burning the burial shroud, she was transmuting Boseman and T'Challa's energy so that it wasn't around for another actor to use. In his life, Boseman championed the idea of young men having fathers. He expressed that conviction on his very first serious television role. He questioned the producers about the black male character he was going to portray, and he asked about the character's father. That's who he was. Think about this. In the first Black Panther movie, when his character disagrees with his ancestors, his father, for leaving Killmonger alone in America and not bringing him home to Wakanda, that wasn't just the character of T'Challa speaking. That was Chadwick Boseman speaking. He was all about lineage, heritage, and young black men having fathers or father figures in their life. Please note, both Killmonger and T'Challa were able to speak to their dead fathers on the ancestral plane. They made sure they did that, which is why when it came to Shuri, they did not have her talk to her father, even though that would have been a perfect time for her to do it because she was in a crisis moment. It would have been a perfect callback to what happened in the first Black Panther movie with her brother. But they did not do that because Marvel also has a problem with black characters having a lineage, and they especially have a problem with the black female characters ever getting any advice from their fathers, even though all the other female characters, including other characters of color, other female characters of color, regularly do that, and it's an important part of who they are as characters. Marvel is working their spells and their rituals right in front of our faces. I have no doubt that having T'Challa and Killmonger talk to their fathers was Chadwick Boseman's idea, because Ryan Coogler has proven that he prefers fatherless black male characters in his movies. And as if to prove it, we come to Wakanda Forever, and true to form and free of Boseman's influence, Ryan Coogler creates an illegitimate son for T'Challa. But that's not enough. To further negate everything Boseman believed, Coogler sends the boy away from Wakanda to live in one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. Of course, this was done directly to counter everything Chadwick Boseman stood for in his real life. Some people have lost the thread when it comes to the What If Season 1 episode, What If T'Challa Was Star-Lord? because of what Marvel did in other episodes that included the character. They had T'Challa killed by Killmonger with a sonic weapon of all things. Vibrations again, energy. But they also had him eaten on by a zombie Scarlet Witch. But those things were done to distract us from what I feel was Boseman's central message and mission. The reason that Boseman played that part, again in my opinion, the reason he played that part as one of his last performances was to send a very clear and powerful message. And that is that T'Challa is more than Wakanda. T'Challa is more than the Black Panther mantle. T'Challa, the man himself, represents a force for good and change in the world and the universe, and that transcends any of these other things. And by Boseman playing that part, he was saying to us that even if you take T'Challa out of Wakanda and he's not the Black Panther, and you put him on the other side of the universe, T'Challa, the man, will make a difference and will transform the universe for good. This is a supremely powerful message that so many people miss because of all the other crap that Marvel put around that episode to distract us from the central message. And that is why they had to retcon him out of existence. That power still clings to any representation of T'Challa. And therefore, you cannot let any other Black actor put that mantle on their shoulders and receive that increase that was guaranteed and promised to come to them because of what Chadwick Aaron Boseman did in his God-given role as the seed planter. And Marvel Studios and Disney could not allow that to happen because, above all, they have to maintain control of our image, our abilities, our imagination, and our creativity. I feel Chadwick Boseman was a light worker. His Black Panther and What If versions of T'Challa exhibited all the qualities of light workers. T'Challa sought to change the world for the better in the movie, and he sought to change the universe for the better in that What If episode. And now Marvel and Disney have casted their high production value spell, and they are using the core target demographic to dissipate this positive energy.